Alec Baldwin walks. Special prosecutor Carrie Morrissey takes the stand. What the heck is going on with the Alec Baldwin case? Hello, 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 and welcome to Alexa's Room, where we are not lawyers, we are not medical professionals, we are not law enforcement. We are just people who have opinions about all things going on in the true crime community, including what the heck is going on with the Alec Baldwin trial. Now, if you guys are just stumbling upon this news, yes, the rumors are true. Judge Summer dismisses charges against Alec Baldwin after the defense alleges government misconduct. So, what does this mean? We're going to break it all down for you right now. The involuntary manslaughter case against actor Alec Baldwin was dismissed in a dramatic fashion on Friday. Yes, I can confirm it was dramatic. On Friday, after the judge overseeing the case ruled prosecutors did not properly turn over evidence to the defense. Baldwin's attorneys had filed a motion to dismiss the case, arguing state investigators did not properly share with the defense that a man had delivered a box of ammunition connected to the case to investigators. Judge Mary Marlowe Summer sent the jury home for the day and heard several hours of testimony about the alleged issue. At about 4 p.m. local time, so Mountain Time on 1 Central, she sided with the defense and dismissed the case with prejudice, meaning it cannot be brought again. So, what does this mean for Baldwin? I know he still has some civil lawsuits that he has to deal with. So, justice, in a way, I guess, can still be served, but not on a criminal level. The state's discovery violation has injected a needless, incurable delay into the jury trial, she said. Dismissal with prejudice is warranted to ensure the integrity of the judicial system and the efficient administration of justice. Your motion to dismiss with prejudice is granted. And I'm kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. I don't know about you guys. I don't have anything necessarily personally against Alec Baldwin. I know some of you guys were like, he wasn't sleeping yesterday into trial. I mean, I it kind of looked like he was at times, but that's just my opinion. I don't have anything against him personally. I don't think he's a particularly bad actor or a great actor. He's actually in one of my favorite movies, Married to the Mob. Um, even though he's a very small role in that movie. Um, but that being said, I'm caught between a rock and a hard place because I do feel as a producer, even though this wasn't allowed into this trial, that he did hold some culpability. And after all, at the end of the day, you were the guy who was holding the instrument that committed the tragic events that unfolded that day. Not only did you just eh, kill somebody, but you also severely injured another person as well too. And it's just overall upsetting because how can there really be justice for Helena Hutchins? And is Alec Baldwin going to take any personal accountability? I know right now he has his reality show too, which seems kind of, I don't know, a little distasteful. I'm sure he's waiting to tell his story through that, through his own kind of manipulated lens, because it's his show and he can kind of frame things however he wants to. And I don't think anybody thinks he intentionally did it. I'm sure it haunts him to this day. I don't think he did it out of malice, but I do think that in a way justice could have been served where he could have been, I don't know, maybe just restricted from creating any kind of films where there are firearms involved. That for me would feel like at least some kind of accountability or justice, or at least him saying, yeah, I'm not going to be on another set where there is firearms involved because of just the severity of what happened and the fact that this has only happened twice in Hollywood history that somebody has gotten not severely injured on a set, but has died because of firearm misuse on a film set. So I'm going to pull up this clip and let me know what you guys think in the comments below too. I know it's a little bit controversial, but that's just my opinion. And again, I'm always open to respectful conversations in the comment section. So this is right before Carrie Morrissey takes the stand. And as we just learned before, new evidence was just learned today, or apparently it's kind of like the taillight pieces, right? Like they just reveal themselves. Well, this evidence just happened to reveal itself to Carrie Morrissey and to the lead investigator, even though yesterday I'm fairly certain she testified that she was a assisting investigator on this case, Detective Hancock. They both testified today that they didn't learn of this evidence until today, and therefore they weren't able to provide the evidence or knew that it existed until and that's the reason why that they couldn't provide this evidence to the defense. So a lot of holes in the story. Makes it seem a little evasive at times, but Carrie Morrissey was very persistent about testifying and going under oath and swearing this. And a lot of people have speculated more to clear her name because at this point, this is the 11th hour, and it seems like this is her Hail Mary pass, not to necessarily save the case. At this point, her co-counsel had even walked out and quit during the trial, and we will hear from her in a bit on why she did that and what happened behind the scenes a little bit. But first, I want to play this clip where Judge Summer is essentially saying, "Girl, you don't need to do this." And I think we can all agree she probably shouldn't have. But I guess this was her Hail Mary pass to save her career. But let's take a listen to what the judge had to say.
We're back on the record.
The court indicated that you wanted me under oath, and I'm happy to do that. When would you like me?
Well, okay, so just to be clear, you're a witness, okay? So you can say oath or whatever, but are you calling yourself as a witness? Or do you want Mr. Spiro to call you as a witness?
It doesn't matter to me. How do you want to do it?
I don't think it's necessary, frankly, for this evidentiary record for me to call Ms. Morrissey. I know what happened, and the court knows what happened. I don't think we need
Because at this point, note that they had already, he had already ripped Hancock to a new one. I mean, body cam footage had come out before that we had never seen of what's his name, Tresky, the retired police officer from Arizona, bringing in the AKA the Good Samaritan, bringing the ammunition that he had found. There's body with Miss Popple or Popel, the crime scene technician as well too. It was just a complete shit show and a half. But as you can see, Morrissey is like, no, I'm going under oath. I'm doing this. And he doesn't you just see the defense kind of just sit back and let the shit show kind of unveil from there. So let's continue.
Okay, do you want to call yourself as a witness? No, well, just a minute. So he's willing, as I understand it, to rest now.
Mhm.
Okay? Now, you don't have to say anything under oath if you don't want to.
No, I'm happy to.
Okay, so not only happy to, I don't, it doesn't matter to me whether you call yourself as a witness. It doesn't matter to the defense whether you call yourself as a witness.
And that just tells me right there, at that moment, I knew when she was saying that the judge had already made up her mind that she was going to, in fact, dismiss this case. Because, yeah, from an accountability standpoint, yes, I think a lot of us would have felt justice would have been served to see Alec Baldwin serve some time and take some responsibility. But from a constitutional rights perspective of, yeah, he can't get a fair case if the defense doesn't have all the evidence they need to make the case that they need for their client, then yeah, that's a position that none of us want to be in either. So it really is a kind of a internal struggle for me, and probably for a lot of you too. But you can kind of see the judge here saying, "Girl, you really don't have to do this. Are you sure? Because you're on national television right now, and it's only going to go downhill from here."
So if you're calling yourself as a witness, there's no one here that's requiring you to be called as a witness.
The information, everything that happened in this regard, especially as it pertains to me, needs to come out in the public.
All right, so you're calling yourself as a witness.
And I am, and it was my understanding that the court indicated to me previously that you wanted me to testify. I understand you've now changed your mind. I think it's a good idea if I do it. Where would you like me?
Okay.
Do you want me here at the podium?
No,
Even look at like Stephen Baldwin's face. He's like, "What in the world is going on?" And you just see all these people on Baldwin's side being like, "Holy smokes!" I believe somebody reported that might have been his sister. If anybody knows, let me know. in the comment section. So now Carrie Morrissey is going to tell her story. There's essentially nobody, I mean, her co-counsel is gone. There is nobody to ask her any questions, I guess, on direct to kind of back her up. So it's just kind of her telling her narrative from there. But I want to skip ahead to when Spyro takes cross-examination of her, because this is where he really seems to fly. And a couple of people made the point to call this out. And I think it's, again, I know I said this in my last video, I think it's because he's a civil attorney. He's not really a criminal attorney. So you really got to see his skill set shine. And I kind of wish we would have seen this earlier during opening statements, especially with his ridiculous theory. This kind of was a default win in a way, but a win nonetheless. And yeah, you just really see him like destroy her on cross-examination, and kudos to him, because yeah, I mean, this is a position that none of us want to be in if we are ever sitting in the defendant's chair. So you see Spyro's kind of like, okay, I guess I'll cross-examine her, which I'm sure at this point, with the level of contention between the two, he was fired up and like, all right, cool, you want to do this dance? Then let me lead this dance.
Can I ask a few questions, Ron?
Yeah.
When you took over this case, the investigator handling the case, Mr. Schilling, left the case, correct?
At my request, yes.
The paralegal that was handling this case with you left the case, Mr. Todd.
At my request, yes.
Well, the first prosecutor that was working with you on this case, you selected, correct?
I did.
And he resigned too?
I wouldn't say that he resigned, no.
Okay. He didn't stay on the case for the Alec Baldwin trial, correct?
No, and he indicated that that was because he represented a labor union that's a national labor union, and he was not expecting the trial to be set so quickly. He wasn't expecting it to be set in July. So when he realized that the trial was going to be set in July, he was going to be in collective bargaining agreements for his national labor union, and he wasn't going to be able to have enough time.
Erlinda Johnson, the next prosecutor selected, resigned from the case today,
She did.
based in part on the conduct we're here discussing, correct?
I believe that Ms. Johnson Ms. Johnson didn't want my understanding is that she didn't agree with the decision to have a public hearing.
So let's hear, before we continue with this clip, because nobody expected this one, but Miss Johnson, her co-counsel, interviewed with Chris Cuomo tonight about her reason for leaving during the trial today. So let's play that clip right now and see what she has to say about why she walked off.
What is the standard, and why do you believe co-counsel got it wrong?
Well, this is a lot to process. Obviously, I learned about this yesterday evening. But just in looking at, so the first time I look at this evidence was this morning, because it was brought over to court. I think, as you saw, the judge had them open the envelope. And so there were 3 rounds that looked very similar to the live rounds that were found on the set of Rust. Thinking as a defense attorney, I'm thinking the defense could have argued Hannah Gutierrez-Reed was a great armorer. She was completely competent, and there was sabotage. So you have that potential sabotage angle. So then at that point, potentially those 3 rounds do become.
And I will say, and we're not going to play this, but Seth Kenney's testimony today, he was pretty, he was definitely unlikable. So thankfully, like, if he got in front of a jury, I mean, I know he testified in the Hannah Gutierrez-Reed case already, but I mean, he just came off very evasive, very unlikable too. So that's
potentially exculpatory. But the point is, it should have been turned over. It wasn't turned over. And
you think it met the standard? Any way you look at it, it should have been turned over. It was enough for you to step away. I want to ask you about the case now that it's dismissed, because I didn't understand why you guys brought it. I thought it was totally political. I thought if this guy's name wasn't Alec Baldwin, if it was Alec McIntosh, he wouldn't be there.
I like really hate that Chris Cuomo said this. And like, do I think there's a world where, yes, there are people who are gunning for, say in the same way that TMZ always likes to drag Britney Spears in the media and the news. But I don't think everybody's out to get Alec Baldwin. At the end of the day, you can't deny Chris Cuomo. He was holding the firearm. And if I was Helena Hutchins' family, yes, I would want to see everybody responsible. And not only that, he was the producer. Granted, that wasn't granted to come into the trial. He was just the actor holding the firearm in the scene. But I think if the prosecution could have proved that, yes, he in fact did pull the trigger, then yeah, he very well could have gotten convicted and he should have been held accountable too. So I don't agree with his comment here of him saying, I don't understand at all why you brought the stick. Then who's supposed to be responsible? Yes, I agree. First and foremost, whoever brought the live rounds to the set, and that Hannah Gutierrez Reed, she was reckless. Do I think she was intentionally incompetent? No, I think she was just incompetent. And I think, again, a lot of people throw around, she was a Nepo baby. Her dad was a Hollywood armorer. He had a reputation. So, that inflated ego, along with just being a reckless, inexperienced armorer, yeah, that's a recipe for disaster, but that's not what Alec Baldwin was on trial for. I think, again, I talked about this in my video yesterday. I feel like the defense brought in a lot of this for distraction, and if the prosecution was just forthcoming with this evidence, the trial would have been continued. We would have gotten through today another day of testimony, and maybe we could have gotten a conviction, or at the very least we could have gotten a mistrial, and then the prosecution could have had time to maybe better their case for round two. But now we'll never know because he can't get criminally charged for this again. So let's continue to hear what Miss Johnson had to say.
He pissed off the prosecutors early on by what he was saying, and they wanted to get him. Why am I wrong?
Well, first of all, I was not involved in the charging decisions. I will tell you that based on my evaluation of the evidence that I was privy to and that I saw when I came on board on this case, was that there were numerous clips from the filming on the set that showed that Mr. Baldwin, unfortunately, did engage in some horseplay with this gun. For example, one individual who was interviewed by the OSHA investigators and testified or gave an interview that there was a time that he allowed Mr. Baldwin to use him kind of as a target, to shoot blanks at him at his person. And obviously these are real guns. You don't do that with real guns. So there's
on a movie set? But isn't that exactly what they do on a movie set?
Well, no, you don't use another person as a target, as a human target. So that could potentially be reckless. And so, he wasn't charged with intentional homicide. There's no question, for me, there's no question Mr. Baldwin did not intend to do this. But the question is, was there wanton and recklessness? And so that's why I did believe in the case. I had no idea that this other evidence had not been turned over.
That is very clear. And I've told the audience, this is not about you. That's a separate prosecutor who seemed to know about it. We've showed her on screen. Her name is Morrissey. It is not you. I just want to ask you, I have two more questions. The first one is, I still don't buy it. I don't understand how on a movie set, you should have a reasonable expectation that you might have live ammo in the weapon. Well, why? Why would you have that as a reasonable expectation?
Because remember, there are the SAG guidelines, there's bulletins, safety bulletins that dictate, even if you're an actor, even if you're on a movie set, you treat a real firearm as though it's always loaded, never pointed at another person.
And blanks can kill people. There are reports where blanks have seriously injured or even resulted in death of a person. I think there was one instance where an actor was holding a gun that was loaded with blanks to his head, and because there was enough pressure, I guess it was able to cause him to unfortunately pass. And I think overall, and a lot of people have brought up this point, yeah, like why does there need to be live rounds to begin with? And the explanation we got earlier about the 1883, I didn't actually know that. I actually watched some episodes of that as well too. 1883 was pretty good show, where they were training the actors, but they did it on a closed set. And I have to wonder, I'm like, well, why in that instance nobody was critically injured, nobody was killed? Why was that successful where they were practicing with live rounds and showing the actors, this is because I think it is important, especially as an actor. I used to act for a short period of time as well too. So I understand you want to actually know what it feels like to have the real experience, so you can, when you're acting and performing, you can give an authentic experience as an actor and present it on screen. You know how to hold a gun, like it is actually loaded with real bullets. And because this looks like it was a time period piece as well too, I don't know what year this film was set to be in. The bullets look different than they necessarily would in a revolver today. So a lot of interesting points here. Let's continue, and then we'll get into Carrie Morrissey's testimony.
You don't put your finger on the trigger until you're ready to shoot. Those are cardinal firearm handling safety rules. So yes, did I believe that there was some inappropriate behavior with regard to handling this gun? I do. It's unfortunate that things went the way they went, but the fact of the matter is that we as prosecutors have very, very serious and high ethical obligations, that when something comes to our attention, evidence comes to us, or we become aware of evidence, you turn it over. You don't decide.
Are you a big Alec Baldwin fan? Are you a big Alec Baldwin fan?
You know, I actually do. I am a fan. I wouldn't say a big fan. I never saw him as Alec Baldwin, the actor. To me, it was, this is the case. Someone died. This was a tragic case. Someone was killed. And she was killed with a live bullet. She was killed because someone also pointed a gun at her. I never had, for me, it was not about Alec Baldwin, the actor. This is not about politics. For me, it was about putting forth the facts before a jury.
Hey, thank you for watching.
I mean, honestly, I wonder if she was the one who was running the show for the prosecution, would this have turned out differently? That being said, none of that matters now because the case is dismissed and he cannot be tried again. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. But now we're going to get to Spiro's cross-examination of Carrie Morrissey. I feel like this was probably the highlight of his time during this trial.
On July 1st in this matter, you served a certificate of compliance with 5501, correct?
I did.
And you've never turned over the report or any of the evidence that we're talking about here at this hearing, correct?
Let's take it one at a time. I did not turn over the report. I didn't have a copy of the report. The rounds that were left at the Sheriff's Department by Troy Teskey, I have absolutely no reason to believe that they are relevant to the incident that took place on the set of Rust. These are rounds that were in the possession of Bell Reed and never left the state of Arizona.
You also did not allow the defense to view that evidence at any point during our request to review evidence in this case.
I had never seen it, and I didn't realize that it wasn't under the same case number because I'm not a law enforcement officer and I don't work at the Sheriff's Department.
And now it's like, oh, girlfriend, now you are throwing the Sheriff's Department under the bus. I mean, yes, no, it's not her fault that they didn't mark the evidence appropriately. So in other words, when Troy Teskey came with the rounds of ammunition to the police precinct, they, instead of, even though on the body cam footage he said these were not from the Rust film set, which again, we're only taking his word for it at that point. I mean, he was buddies with Del Reed, who is the father of Hannah Gutierrez Reed. So a little sus there. You would think that the investigators would be like, okay, like let's question this guy a little bit more, maybe not take his word for it to the T. They didn't log this under the same case number as the other ammunition that was found on the Rust movie set. So that is where these problems are stemming from, just to catch you up in case you missed this earlier.
But you are right.
And you concede that they are Starline brass silver 45, right?
I can. And this is the best evidence against Hannah Gutierrez.
Yeah, you've said that a couple of times. Any favorable evidence you understand as a prosecutor has to be turned over to the defense, correct?
I do.
Any evidence that could be used as a defense to potentially be favorable has to be turned over to the defense.
Absolutely.
So the third Hague report that never got turned over to the defense, you understand that that's Brady evidence?
I did, yes.
Okay. And you also failed to turn that over in this case as well, correct?
And let me give you a full answer to your question. When the second Hague report came in, and I provided all of this to the defense, I sent it to the person who is managing the discovery server and asked them to upload it. It wasn't until I realized during pretrial interviews that it wasn't there, that there was a problem with it. So I then attempted to figure out what the problem was, and it was indicated to me that it appeared that the former paralegal who was working for the special prosecutor, had removed it. So we then immediately provided it. Then during the pretrial interview of Mr. Haig, it was brought to my attention that the defense did not have the August 31st report that indicated that the gun functioned fine, perfectly fine. And that was provided immediately. I went back, I checked my email, I could see that I received it from Mr. Haig and failed to forward it on to be uploaded. And I provided it as soon as I was aware that you did not have it.
The fact that nobody at the Hannah Gutierrez retrial cross-examined Mr. Haig about the report didn't clue you into the fact that nobody had the report?
Actually, it didn't, and I'd like to address that. The reason that it didn't clue me in is because Hannah Gutierrez's defense was that the gun worked perfectly. The defense in Hannah Gutierrez was never interested in any evidence that there was an issue with the gun, because if there was an issue with the gun, it damaged her case. So what you could see, if you watched the trial or saw any of the transcripts, the defense actually brought in their own expert to say that the gun worked perfectly. So they had no interest in that information.
And actually, you elicited testimony from Mr. Haig at that trial that was inconsistent, at least partially inconsistent, as the court's aware, with his third report, correct?
Tell me what you're referring to, and I'll answer your question.
Well, there was a whole hearing about this where you saw this, and you saw me go back and forth with Mr. Haig for 25 minutes. So I agree,
but I need to know what you're talking about for me to answer your question.
Okay, if you can't answer the question, you can't answer the question. I'll move on.
I'm happy to, but
Like, yikes, yikes, yikes. But like, my big question is, then why didn't you just tell him, like, hey, dude, like, I don't know why. Like, just be transparent. Just be transparent. Hey, dude, I don't know why, like, this wasn't forwarded over, why this isn't existing. But like, I don't think we can move forward until we can make sure that you have everything that you need. If there's anything, like, it's so interesting to me how essentially the defense and prosecution, they're opposing teams, but they still have to work together. You have to be transparent. And I think the prosecution really messed this up for seeking justice for Helena Hutchins. I mean, I can't imagine what her family is feeling like in this moment.
You say that the extent of the communications you have about the doc report, as you relay it to the court, is that all you said in response was, great, do that? That's your testimony?
yeah, I assumed that it was going to be tied to the same case number. So I said, great, do it, file a report.
No follow-up questions?
No, because I had a picture of the ammunition that didn't match the ammunition from the set of Rust.
But why didn't you ask for the case number? Why didn't you like, why didn't you follow up? Why didn't you ask? Why didn't you double check? Like, these are just silly, ridiculous things. This is such a silly, talk about reckless mistake.
No concerns in your mind when you got the case file and you turned it over to us and it wasn't included?
Absolutely not. There's a terabyte of discovery. I didn't know whether this 2-page police report had been provided. And in addition to that, I had no reason to believe, and still have no reason to believe, that those rounds have anything to do with these cases.
As I asked you about Mr. Haig yesterday when Ms. Popple testified, you would agree with me that her testimony under oath was false?
What part of her testimony was false? And I'll answer.
That she said that these rounds don't look anything like the rounds on the set when you elicited that testimony.
I agree with you. And I didn't realize that there were rounds that looked like that.
It's okay. In any event.
So earlier today, the judge had, this was also a trip and a half, and I'll see if I can pull a clip later. The judge gets off the bench, puts gloves on. She gloves up. Spyro gloves up. Carrie Morrissey, for whatever reason, doesn't glove up. But now I have a hinting suspicion as to why. And then they call back in crime scene technician back into court. And they're all standing in front of the bench in close court, so not in front of the jury, literally going through all of the ammunition to seeing, okay, like, do these match up with this? I've never ever seen a judge from at least any trials that I've been following and watching. I don't know if you guys have, or any of my lawyer friends out here in this community, if that has ever happened in any of the trials that you've defended or prosecuted. Let me know, because that was just in itself, that was wild. And that was what really kickstarted all of this. So this is what he's specifically talking about.
When the court, and you never tested those rounds either, correct?
Any of the rounds that came from Mr. Teskey? No, because they came in just a few months ago.
And the court asked you actually one question that I want to address, which is the court said to you, well, what's interesting to me, to be quite honest, is that yesterday you didn't even want to do a written reply. You wanted to just give an oral response. And what you said to the court was, I never saw these. I've never seen these. And I never saw the report. I have absolutely never seen these until this morning. Do you remember saying that to the court?
With regard to the 3 Starline brass, with regard to the 3 cartridges that appear to be similar to rust, yes.
Well,
I never saw them until today.
Well, but you said also, I never saw the report, right?
I never did.
Right. But don't you think, given your duty of candor to this court, that that's awfully misleading to not tell the court at that point that you knew about this when it occurred long ago?
Yeah.
That I knew about what?
You knew that Mr. Teskey had turned in this evidence, that you knew that the report would have existed because you just told this court that the doc report was okayed by you.
Sure.
Don't you think it was misleading to this court to not just say at that point, just so you know, I know about this. I knew about this then. I was involved.
I did not intend to mislead the court. My understanding of what was dropped off at the sheriff's department is on this computer.
Like now it really does feel like a film. She's like, look at my spinning laptop as I show you this picture of the ammunition. And it's like, girl, just get off the stand. Why? It's done. You're done. Case dismissed.
Computer screen, and it looks absolutely nothing like the live rounds from the set of Rust.
The truth of this matter is, you don't like Mr. Baldwin very much, do you?
That is absolutely untrue. I actually really appreciate Mr. Baldwin's movies. I really appreciated.
This is my by far my favorite part. But before we get to it, apparently there were two rounds that were found that did match. So that is also not true. Carrie.
You don't like Mr. Baldwin very much, do you?
That is absolutely untrue. I actually really appreciate Mr. Baldwin's movies. I really appreciated the acting that he did on Saturday Night Live, and I really appreciate his politics.
What a bizarre answer. What a bizarre answer. I really appreciate his politics. I really enjoyed him on Saturday. I mean, I think we all did. The sweaty balls. It's pretty funny. He's also good. He does a good Trump impersonation as well too. But I mean, what a time. I'm actually a fan of Alec Baldwin. But it's oh my God. And comparing her to her co-counsel, I mean, just so much more well spoken in the fact of, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm necessarily a fan, but I just saw him as a defendant. And this is a case where we're trying to seek justice for this victim. And that is the big injustice in all of this, is that, again, I don't really think, at least for me, I mean, maybe it is true. Maybe she was gunning for him. I don't know. But I just find it a little hard to believe. I mean, at the end of the day, it's indisputable. He was the one holding the gun. Without the gun being in his hand, this thing wouldn't have gotten fired off. At least maybe at that specific moment, not by him. He wouldn't have fired it off if the gun wasn't in his hand. So he is responsible to an extent. And I just feel like the prosecution just angers me so much because this is such a silly reason for this case to be dismissed. And silly in the fact that this is something that just didn't need to happen. If you lost and you gave it your all and you really tried this case and you did the best that you possibly could with the evidence that was allowed into the trial, then I would say, you know what, yes, it sucks, but at least you fought hard. At least on a civil level, maybe the family can find justice, but it just seems like you're kind of just spitting in everybody's face. by just doing these shenanigans that just didn't need to happen. Even if you're not 100% responsible for how the investigation conducted, I mean, that's not your fault. I can't fault you for that. But you have a moral and ethical code as an attorney to do the right thing and to be fully transparent. And this is not at all how it should have went down today. Into this just clown show.
You told one of the witnesses who disagreed with you during an interview that you thought Mr. Baldwin was a cocksucker.
I do not recall saying that. I know that that was something that Mr. Baldwin would say on the set of Rust. I don't recall saying that.
Do you deny that under oath?
He can't
Without
do that.
having more information, I can tell you that I do not recall ever saying that. And if I did say it, I invite you to point it out to me.
You called him an arrogant prick to another witness.
To who? To what witness?
I'm asking you, did you call him an arrogant prick during the witness interview?
I don't believe I did. I
Let
don't
her know,
recall.
Carrie.
You deny that?
Without knowing what you're talking about, all I can tell you is that I can't respond if I don't know what you're talking about.
And you said also to witnesses that you would teach him a lesson.
I never said to witnesses that I would teach him a lesson. Absolutely not. In fact, Mr. Spiro, I want to give a full response to your question.
Oh, here we go.
I made every effort in this case to resolve this case with your client in a very favorable way for him.
All right, I'm gonna move to strike this. It's not responsive.
It is
Well, I don't
responsive.
want to talk about plea negotiations.
Yeah, and it's not. And
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially what she's doing. She's saying, well, why are you painting me out to be the bad guy? I was trying to avoid all of this. But it's Carrie. You've dug yourself a hole that you cannot dig out of. You can only dig deeper. So just stop talking. Stop it.
it's not responsive. So I have no further
All right,
questions.
do you have any follow-up testimony? All right,
I want to say I have no recollection of calling him any of those names. I have invited the defendant to tell me what he's talking about, and he has declined. I want the court to take notice of that.
thank you. You may step down. All right, any other witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
All right, argument, let's not, 15 minutes aside sufficient?
I don't even think that is necessary, frankly.
Do you wanna make argument?
Further argument.
All
I
right.
don't think either side needs further argument. It's fine.
All right,
So they don't even get closing arguments for this motions hearing. And I mean, I think it was everybody saw the writing on the wall. The judge now reads the motion to dismiss, like we just quoted from the article. The only other thing I want to pull up is that clip of Carrie Morrissey giving a statement because Baldwin and his team just yeeted right on out of the courthouse. And we can only speculate as to why. I mean, I feel like Baldwin is probably going to do a follow-up interview probably shortly. Maybe in his reality show, maybe during his, I mean, is this movie going to get released? Probably, because to my knowledge, they completed filming for it. So I can only imagine. I mean, yikes on yikes on yikes. So let's pull up this clip really quickly of Carrie Morrissey just further digging herself into a hole after the judge had dismissed this.
I understand that the court disagrees with me, and I respect the court's decision. There is absolutely no evidence that any of that ammunition is related to the incident involving Ms. Hutchins.
So the judge is wrong?
No, I said that I respect the court's decision. I think that people can disagree. I'm disappointed because I believe that the importance of the evidence was misconstrued by the defense attorneys, but I have to respect the court's
Do you
decision.
feel you let the Hutchins family down?
Do you regret not turning over the ammunition?
Well, I didn't know that the ammunition that became the subject of today's hearing existed.
You still believe Mr. Baldwin was guilty?
That has never been a decision for me. That has always been a decision for the jury.
Did you let the Hutchins family down?
No, we didn't. We did everything humanly possible to bring justice to.
I mean, in a way, you kind of did, Carrie. You kind of did. I mean, the trial at the very least would have. I mean, in one sense, we got justice because Hannah is the other guilty party was convicted. But I'm fairly certain that the Hudgens family, and I can only speculate, not that they think this was done intentionally. I don't know what they're thinking. I don't know what they believe, but I can only speculate that they probably are disappointed because this was all completely unnecessary and this was all in your control. This is all in your control. So, yeah, in a way, did you let this case down? Yeah, you kind of did. Because this is just a whole lot of nonsense that just didn't need to happen. And it's just incredibly upsetting and frustrating.
To Helena and to her family, and we're proud of the work that we did. Again, we disagree with the court's decision, but we have to respect it. So where do you go from here?
So and there we have it. It was very quick. Spoke a few words. Like I said, Alec Baldwin's team didn't say anything. They just all yeeted, which I was a little shocked at. I didn't think he would necessarily make a comment. He's probably waiting for his big press tour. So we will see. We will continue to follow. Again, like I said, even though his criminal case has been dismissed and he cannot be criminally charged for this again, he still has all those civil lawsuits looming over his head. So we will be following that as well too here on this channel. But we have other news. I'm going to be recording this next video now for the Karen Reed trial because we had some fiery updates. The Commonwealth responded to the motion filed by the defense earlier this week to dismiss counts 1 and 3 of the charges against Karen Reed. So that video will be posted tomorrow along with that Turtle Boy update as well too. I know I keep saying that to you guys. It was just a fiery day in court, and I just wanted to make sure I got this coverage out to you first, and we will catch up all by Monday, I promise. And before I let you go, just as a quick reminder, if you want to make a donation, I know I don't have this on my video today. I just started recording because I was just so fired up. If you want to make a donation to this channel, show your support, all 20% of all proceeds will go directly into the Karen Reed Defense Fund. If you want to do it through Cash App and you want to send me a note, I will read your note at the end of every video and post your name up, your first name up in the ending credits as well too. Just as my way of saying thank you so much for supporting this channel and this growth. I really couldn't do any of this stuff without you guys. Or if you want to donate directly to the Karen Reed Defense Fund, you can do so as well at the link below in the description. Or if you can't afford to make a donation, absolutely no pressure at all. Just you simply watching this video, subscribing, hitting the notification bell, and most importantly, hitting that like button as well too. That shows the YouTube algorithm that this is newsworthy news, and I believe it is because at the end of the day, I said this in my last video, yes, you can think whatever you want about Alec Baldwin. I don't really feel a specific way towards him. It's more indifference. Regardless of that, all the glitz, the glamour of Hollywood, the drama, the courtroom drama that unfolded today, it really did make it feel like it was something out of a movie. I know Spyro was there for it, and a lot of people watching at home were there for it, for the excitement and the thrill of the tension between the two. But at the end of the day, we have to remember that a life was lost, and her life matters too. She is a daughter, she is a mother, she is a sister. And I think we all need to remember that. And that's why I believe that this, if you guys can just like the video, it doesn't cost anything and it'll help just reach Helena's story out to more and more people. And hopefully eventually we can seek justice for her in just some capacity and maybe bring a little bit of peace to her family and loved ones. So that being said, thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys in the next one.